Hello and welcome back to Grim Tales. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading every single one. If you enjoy dark, twisted, grim tales that send chills down your spine, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, get comfortable, dim the lights if you dare, relax your mind, let the outside world fade away, and let's begin. Story 1, I am an alien spy, and my people will invade Earth very soon. I know how ridiculous that sounds. You are probably wondering why any spy would openly admit such a thing, especially before an invasion begins. Why would I warn the very species my people plan to conquer? The answer is simple. There is nothing humanity can do to stop us. I am not writing this because I expect your governments to prepare a defense. I am not trying to help your soldiers, scientists, or leaders create some secret weapon. I am not betraying my people. By the time anyone important reads this, the invasion will already be too close to prevent. Our fleet is on its way. Your world has already been defeated. Most of you simply do not know it yet. My species is ancient. We existed long before human beings learned to build cities, write language, or understand the stars. We have traveled between worlds for more years than your scientists could accurately measure. You have never heard of us. You will not find us in your religious texts, history books, ancient stories, government records, or conspiracy theories. There are no cave paintings showing our true forms. There are no forgotten monuments built in our honor. There are no secret files containing clear pictures of our ships. That is not because we have never visited Earth. It is because we do not allow evidence to remain. We do not make open contact with worlds we intend to conquer. We do not announce ourselves. We do not land in front of your leaders and ask to be taken to whoever is in charge. We do not exchange messages with less advanced civilizations. Open contact creates panic. Panic creates unity. Unity can make even a primitive species dangerous. Instead, we watch. We study. We quietly enter your society, learn how it functions, and slowly weaken it from within. Every planet is different, so every invasion requires a different strategy. We study a species' strengths, weaknesses, religions, governments, technology, and social behavior. We learn what causes them to cooperate and what makes them hate one another. Then, we use that knowledge against them. Hundreds of inhabited worlds have already fallen to our empire. Some resisted for years. Others collapsed in days. A few destroyed themselves before our armies even arrived. Humanity will not be one of the difficult ones. Our technology is more than 1 million years ahead of yours. That may be difficult for you to understand because human beings measure progress in small steps. One generation discovers electricity. Another builds computers. Another develops weapons capable of destroying cities. You believe such advancements make you powerful. To us, your greatest inventions are little more than toys. Your fastest aircraft are slow. Your strongest armor is weak. Your most destructive weapons are crude, unstable, and easy to disable. Even your nuclear weapons do not concern us. Our people mastered energies far more dangerous before your species had learned how to control fire. We have known about humanity for almost 2,000 Earth years. We discovered your planet when much of your world still believed the stars were gods or lights placed in the sky. Since then, we have watched every stage of your development. We saw your kingdoms rise and fall. We observed your wars, plagues, discoveries, revolutions, and industrial growth. We watched you divide land with imaginary borders and then kill millions to defend those lines. We studied the way you separate yourselves by language, skin color, religion, wealth, politics, and nationality. We quickly understood that division was your greatest weakness. For centuries, our agents worked to make sure humanity never truly united. We encouraged distrust between nations. We helped spread ideas that made people hate those who were different from them. We made sure that every time your species moved closer to cooperation, something pulled you apart again. A war, an economic collapse, a political movement, a religious conflict, a struggle over land, money, power, or resources. You might want to blame us for everything wrong with your world, but that would not be honest. We influenced you, yes. We placed ideas in the right minds. We supported certain leaders and weakened others. We guided events in directions that benefited us. But most of the damage was done by humanity itself. Your species has always been eager to hate. We only gave you excuses. You fought over the names of gods. You killed because of differences in appearance. You allowed a small number of people to control enormous wealth while millions starved. You created weapons capable of ending your own civilization, then pointed them at one another and called it peace. We barely had to interfere. Humanity was already doing most of our work for us. Our spies have entered every important part of your society. There is not a single powerful nation on Earth that has escaped us. We have agents inside governments, militaries, banks, research centers, intelligence agencies, technology companies, media organizations, universities, and religious institutions. We are also among ordinary people. Some of us are office workers. Some are teachers, doctors, mechanics, police officers, drivers, farmers, and shop owners. I was placed among your general population. My task was to observe the daily life of an average human being. I was ordered to study the way ordinary people think, work, argue, love, lie, and survive. I was also given another responsibility. I had to decide whether humanity should be enslaved or completely destroyed after the invasion. You cannot identify us by appearance, because the bodies we use are human. Our real forms look nothing like yours. We developed a method of transferring part of our consciousness into a human brain. It is not a perfect process, because your brains are far less advanced than ours. A human mind cannot hold the full consciousness of one of my species. Before an agent is sent to Earth, most of our memories and abilities are stored inside our original body. That body remains alive in a special stasis chamber aboard one of our hidden ships or stations. Only the memories required for the mission are transferred. The human brain limits us, but we remain intelligent enough to complete our work. Our true bodies sleep while we live among you. After the invasion, our consciousness will be returned to our real forms. You may wonder what happens to the human whose body we take. The answer is simple. That person dies. Our smaller ships enter Earth's atmosphere without being detected. We choose humans carefully. We often select people who will not immediately be missed or individuals whose positions are useful to us. They are taken aboard our ships. Their memories are copied. Their consciousness is erased. Then one of our agents is placed inside the empty brain. We keep enough of the original memories to continue the human's life without attracting suspicion. An agent remembers names, relationships, habits, work responsibilities, private conversations, and important personal experiences. The human's family notices nothing. Their friends notice nothing. The agent returns home, smiles, speaks, and behaves almost exactly as the original person did. The person they loved is gone, but the body remains. There is no way for them to know the difference. This process has been used on thousands of people. Some of your most influential leaders stopped being human years ago. There is not a military, intelligence service, government, or major economic system on your planet that we have not entered. We are everywhere. In many ways, we already control your world. You believe you have free will. You think your opinions belong to you. You think you freely choose what to buy, who to support, what to fear, and who to hate. Most of those decisions are influenced by systems we helped create. We control what information becomes popular and what disappears. We decide which stories receive attention. We guide your technology, entertainment, communication, and political arguments. We do not need to control every human thought. We only need to control the direction of the crowd. A small message placed in the correct location can influence millions. A rumor can destroy trust. A repeated lie can become truth. An argument between strangers can spread across your world within hours. Humanity built the tools we use to control it. Your phones, social networks, news systems, and entertainment platforms provide us with everything we need. You carry devices that record your movements, interests, fears, conversations, and relationships. You willingly reveal more about yourselves than any spy could have discovered in the past. Your species placed a tracking device in almost every pocket, and then became angry only when advertisements became annoying. It has made our mission extremely easy. During my time among humans, I watched your daily behavior carefully. I saw kindness. I saw parents sacrifice everything for their children. I saw strangers help one another during disasters. I saw people risk their lives to save animals, friends, and even people they had never met. For a time, I believed humanity might deserve to survive freely. That made my assignment more difficult than I expected. But kindness was never the only thing I saw. I watched people lie for small rewards. I saw them cheat those who trusted them. I watched them hurt others for money, entertainment, revenge, or pride. I saw people murder because of jealousy. I saw children bullied until they hated themselves. I saw powerful people destroy entire communities while pretending they were helping them. I watched humanity turn suffering into entertainment. Your species can show compassion, but it can also become cruel with very little encouragement. After careful thought, I made my decision. Most of humanity will be enslaved. Those who show strong signs of violence will not survive the first stage of the invasion. It would be impossible for us to peacefully coexist with your species. You are too unpredictable, emotional, and dangerous. You might think this judgment is unfair. Perhaps it is. But fairness has never protected a weaker species from a stronger one. Humans do not ask animals for permission before taking their land. You destroy forests, poison rivers, and kill species that interfere with your plans. You place animals in cages, use them in experiments, and breed them for food. When you see insects inside your home, you do not begin peace negotiations. You kill them. To us, humanity is no different. You may also be curious about our true appearance. We are not the creatures your entertainment usually imagines. We are not small gray beings with oversized heads, and we are not the reptilian rulers described in your conspiracy stories. You humans speak about reptilian beings far too often. You make them seem powerful and mysterious, But the species you imagine is disorganized and primitive compared with us. We are taller than the average human. Our bodies are covered with thick scales similar to those of reptiles, but much stronger. The scales function as natural armor. Most human bullets cannot break them. Our hands end in long, sharp claws. Each of us has a powerful tail that helps with balance and can also be used as a weapon. We have two pairs of eyes. One pair detects light in ways similar to human vision. The second pair allows us to see heat, energy, and movement that your eyes cannot detect. We have no hair. Rows of hard spikes grow from our heads and continue down our backs. We are faster than humans. We are stronger. Our bones and muscles are built for greater gravity than Earth's, so movement on your planet feels easy to us. Even without weapons, one of our soldiers could kill several armed humans. With our armor and technology, the difference becomes much greater. We have developed protective suits capable of surviving explosions from your most powerful missiles. Our weapons can burn through tanks, buildings, ships, and underground shelters. Your armies will not be fighting enemies on an equal level. They will be facing something they cannot understand. Our invasion fleet contains 10,000 large ships. Each one carries 1,000 smaller fighters and around 100,000 of our people. Do the numbers yourself. This will not be a war. It will be a slaughter. Some of our smaller ships are already in your solar system. You may wonder why those ships arrived earlier while the main fleet is still traveling. The answer is size. Our smaller vessels move much faster. They are used for scouting, spying, abduction, and preparation. The invasion ships carry soldiers, equipment, factories, and everything required to occupy an entire world. Their journey takes longer. We also needed time for Earth to become suitable for us. Your planet's natural environment was not ideal when we first discovered it. Your atmosphere was too clean, and your temperature was slightly too low. We considered changing it ourselves, but humanity solved the problem for us. Your pollution and global climate change have slowly transformed Earth into an environment far more comfortable for my species. You burned fuel, destroyed forests, poisoned oceans, and filled the air with gases that trapped heat. You argued about whether the changes were real while temperatures continued to rise. You prepared your own world for our arrival without ever knowing it. Once our fleet reaches Earth, the ships will remain hidden. They will enter high orbit under cloaking fields and take positions above important regions. Your satellites will not see them. Your radar systems will detect nothing. Your astronomers may notice strange distortions, but they will not understand what they are seeing. When every ship is in position, the attack will begin. It will be organized and perfectly coordinated. Our fighters will strike every airport and military airfield at the same moment. Commercial runways will be destroyed. Military aircraft will be eliminated before most pilots can reach them. Other fighters will attack seaports, naval bases, missile silos, and nuclear facilities. Your warships and submarines will be located and destroyed. We already know where they are. Your governments believe some weapons and vessels remain secret. They do not. Our agents help build many of them. At the same moment, we will take control of your satellites and communication networks. Human beings will lose access to phones, computers, radios, military networks, and emergency systems. Our viruses are already hidden inside many of your systems. When activated, they will block human commands and replace your codes with our language. Your leaders will not be able to communicate with their armies. Cities will not receive clear information. People will see explosions, darkness, and confusion, but they will not understand what is happening. That is when the ground invasion will begin. Landing ships will descend over cities and heavily populated areas. Soldiers will be placed directly among civilians. Your ground forces will hesitate to use their most destructive weapons because they will fear killing innocent people. We do not share that concern. Humans destroy rats without worrying about the safety of the other rats nearby. We will treat you in the same way. Our soldiers will begin reducing the human population immediately. Those who fight will be killed. Those who run may be killed. Entire areas may be destroyed simply because resistance is detected there. When the fighting ends, surviving humans will be gathered into controlled zones. Most will receive devices implanted directly into their brains. Each person will also wear a control collar. Together, the implant and collar will allow our slave masters to control your bodies completely. We will reduce the useful intelligence of your species to something closer to what humans possessed during the Stone Age. We do not need educated slaves. We do not need you to read, write, argue, invent, or organize. We need bodies capable of physical labor. We need workers to build, carry, dig, clean, and serve. We also need enough humans to reproduce so the slave population continues. The implants will create a special kind of imprisonment. Your mind will remain aware. You will understand what is happening. You will recognize your surroundings. You will remember your family, your life, and the freedom you once had, but you will not control your body. Your body will move automatically according to the commands it receives. You may watch yourself work until you collapse. You may see people you love and be unable to speak to them. You may be ordered to walk away from your children without turning your head. You will feel pain, fear, hunger, and exhaustion. You simply will not be able to resist. Some human bodies will reject the implants. We already know this will happen. Those people will still be allowed to live, but their existence will be far worse. They will be sent to our prisons and laboratories. Our scientists will study them. They will test biological weapons, chemicals, machines, and surgical procedures on them. In the prisons, metallic tentacles will hold them by their wrists and ankles. They will remain suspended in the air, unable to move. They may remain conscious for years. Just as humans do not provide clothing to most of the animals they own, we will not provide clothing to our slaves. You will be stripped of personal belongings, names, privacy, and dignity. Some will serve through hard labor. Others will spend their lives inside laboratories. Your former identity will have no importance. You will no longer be considered a citizen, parent, child, husband, wife, doctor, teacher, soldier, artist, or leader. You will be property. I am telling you this because our fleet will arrive soon. I am not giving you time to prepare a defense. There is no defense. We know every weapon you possess. We know what your species is capable of doing. We know the locations of your shelters, command centers, submarines, laboratories, and hidden facilities. Nothing humanity builds now will be ready in time. Use the time you have left for something else. Make peace with those you care about. Speak to family members you have ignored. Forgive people if you can. Tell your children you love them. Hold the people closest to you. Enjoy your freedom while it still belongs to you. After we take Earth, you may never speak to them again. Families will be separated. Survivors will be placed into different camps based on age, health, physical ability, and usefulness. You may see someone you love in the distance, but your controlled body will not allow you to reach them. You may hear them calling your name while you are forced to walk in the opposite direction. Soon, even speaking will become unnecessary. The implants will control everything. The human world will end, but humanity will continue. Not as a civilization, not as a free species, only as a resource belonging to us. You still have a little time. Do not waste it arguing about whether this message is real. Do not wait for your leaders to save you. Many of them are already ours. Look at the people around you. Remember their faces. Listen carefully to their voices. When the sky finally darkens and our ships reveal themselves, those memories may be the only things no one can immediately take from you. For a while, at least. Eventually, we may learn how to take those too. Story 2. I come to you as a warning of what is about to happen, although warning may not be the right word. My people call themselves the Zyroth. Soon, your world will know that name. You will speak it with fear, anger, disbelief, and finally, obedience. You may think I am a traitor trying to save you. I am not. You may think this message is an act of mercy from someone who has turned against their own kind. It is not that either. This is only a courtesy, a final moment of entertainment before the end of your species. Your resistance will fail. Your fate has already been decided. By the time you understand the truth of what I am telling you, the process will have begun, and there will be no way to stop it. We are not invaders in the simple, violent way your stories describe. We will not arrive in shining ships and attack your cities with bright weapons. There will be no grand battle in the sky, no brave human army standing against us, and no final victory for your people. We are not soldiers. We are architects. Your world is a structure that has been badly designed, and we are coming to rebuild it. You have billions of bodies, endless material resources, and a planet filled with biological life. To you, Earth is a home. To us, it is an unfinished machine. Soon, it will be redesigned. We are the future. Humanity is only a step on the road toward something greater. Perhaps you are wondering why I would tell you any of this. Why offer you a small chance to prepare when I have already said preparation is useless? The answer is simple. Even the inevitable can be beautiful. Watching your species struggle against something it cannot understand will be interesting. Your governments will argue. Your scientists will search for explanations. Your soldiers will prepare weapons that cannot harm us. Your religious leaders will call upon gods who will not answer. Ordinary people will panic, pray, hide, and run. You will try to save yourselves. That desperate struggle will be the final performance of humanity. You believe you are the masters of this planet. You believe history belongs to you. You think your inventions, cities, nations, and laws prove that you control your own destiny. It is a charming belief. It is also false. We have watched your species for thousands of years. Long before your oldest recorded civilizations, we were already here. Your wars, your religions, your great discoveries, and even your most important technological advances were not entirely your own. Many were encouraged. Others were delayed. Some were created by people who believed the ideas came from their own minds. They did not. You have been pieces in a game you never knew was being played. We guided your development carefully. We studied your fears and increased them when necessary. We observed your weaknesses and helped them grow. We learned how easily you could be separated by language, skin color, wealth, faith, borders, and pride. Then we used those divisions. Your history is filled with war because conflict made you easier to study. You built weapons because we encouraged your fear. You created systems of power because we taught the strongest among you to desire control. You destroyed one another in the name of flags, gods, money, land, and ideas because we planted the belief that you were different from each other. You think these failures were natural parts of human nature. Some were, others were cultivated. We planted the seeds of anger and watched them grow. We placed ideas inside the minds of kings, generals, priests, inventors, and rulers. We whispered into dreams. We created visions. We encouraged suspicion. Sometimes, all we had to do was give one frightened person a single thought. The rest of you did the work. Your history books describe wars, famines, plagues, and the collapse of entire societies. You call some of these events natural disasters. You blame others on bad leadership, disease, greed, or simple chance. Very few were accidents. They were tests. Each disaster helped us measure you. We learned how much pain your bodies could survive. We learned how quickly order disappeared when food became scarce. We watched how easily neighbors became enemies and how quickly frightened people surrendered their freedom to anyone who promised safety. We removed the weakest. We shaped the survivors. Generation after generation, humanity became stronger, more adaptable, and more useful. You were not being prepared to inherit the stars. You were being prepared for harvest. Your leaders have already been compromised. Your governments have been influenced for longer than their records can show. Your media, financial systems, military structures, and centers of science contain our agents. Some of them know what they serve. Most do not. A person does not need to understand the machine to become one of its parts. We have walked among you for centuries. You have passed us on crowded streets. You have listened to us on television. You have voted for us, worked for us, trusted us, and sometimes loved us. We have worn the faces of teachers, doctors, soldiers, artists, politicians, police officers, religious leaders, and ordinary workers. We speak your languages without error. We know your customs. We understand the tiny movements of your eyes and faces. We know when you are afraid before you admit it to yourself. We can hear the change in your heartbeat when you lie. Many of you have looked directly at one of us and noticed nothing unusual. Others sensed something. You may remember meeting a stranger who seemed almost human, but not completely. Perhaps their smile came a moment too late. Perhaps their eyes remained still while the rest of their face moved. Maybe their voice sounded correct, but the emotion behind it felt empty. You probably ignored that feeling. Your species has been trained to reject what it cannot explain. That made our work much easier. Our true forms would disturb you. Your minds were not designed to understand what we are. We are not creatures of flesh, although we can inhabit flesh. We exist as organized energy, patterns of living thought capable of moving between bodies, machines, and dimensions. To us, physical form is temporary. A body is only a room. When it becomes damaged, we leave and find another. The laws you call physics do not control us in the same way they control you. We can bend distance, enter spaces that should not exist, and move through layers of reality your instruments cannot detect. Your scientists have observed small signs of these layers. They call them dark matter, unknown energy, quantum uncertainty, or errors in measurement. They are not errors. You have only seen the shadows of a much larger universe. We move through that universe freely. We are not ghosts, gods, or demons, although your ancestors have called us all three. We are simply older than you, more advanced, more complete. Your every movement has been studied. Your thoughts are not as private as you believe. Emotion creates patterns, and patterns can be read. Fear, love, grief, desire, and anger all leave traces in the energy around your mind. We have measured you. We have tested you. You have failed. Still, you misunderstand the true purpose of our arrival. We are not coming to wipe humanity from existence in the way your armies destroy an enemy. Your bodies are weak, but they contain something extremely valuable. Consciousness, your memories, feelings, identities, and private experiences are forms of energy. Every moment of joy, every loss, every secret, every dream, and every fear adds complexity to that energy. You waste it. When a human dies, most of that energy breaks apart and disappears into forms you cannot measure. The Zyroth learned long ago how to collect it. The process is called essence extraction. When the harvest begins, we will separate your consciousness from your body. Your physical form will remain alive. Your heart will continue beating. Your lungs will breathe. Your eyes may still open and follow movement. But the thing that makes you who you are will be gone. Your memories will be removed. Your emotions will be removed. Your personality will be removed. Everything you have ever loved, feared, learned, and believed will be pulled out and stored. The body left behind will be an empty shell. Those shells will still be useful. We will repair the damaged ones, strengthen the weak ones, and place control systems inside their nervous tissue. They will become workers. They will build, carry, mine, clean, repair, and serve. They will never complain. They will never become tired in the way you do now. They will not dream of freedom, because the mind capable of dreaming will no longer be there. Do not mistake this for mercy. We are not allowing your bodies to survive because we care about you. It is simply efficient. Creating new biological workers would require time and resources. You have already produced billions of suitable bodies for us. Why waste them? Your extracted consciousness will serve another purpose. It will fuel our technology. Thought is energy. Emotion is energy. Memory is energy. The more complex the mind, the more power it can provide. The essence of your species will become part of our systems. Your fear may power engines. Your memories may be used to stabilize gateways between dimensions. Your grief may feed weapons capable of tearing holes through space. Your love may be broken down and converted into energy for machines that will outlive your son. Your sacrifice will not be noble. It will not be remembered. It will simply be useful. Your weapons cannot stop us. Your armies, missiles, bombs, aircraft, and satellites are primitive tools. Even the most powerful device ever created by humanity would be harmless against our true technology. You learned how to split the atom and believed you had touched the power of the gods. We can separate the laws that hold atoms together. We can change gravity, inside a living body. We can freeze time around a city while allowing the people inside to remain conscious. We can collapse a star without touching it. We can remove an object from reality so completely that even the memory of it begins to disappear. Imagine a weapon that does not destroy a building, but changes the past, so the building was never constructed. Imagine an army trapped in the same second forever, aware but unable to move forward. Imagine looking at the night sky and watching a star vanish because we decided its light was inconvenient. This is the power of the Zyroth. Your minds cannot fully understand it, just as an insect cannot understand the machine that crushes it. Your world will not end in a loud explosion. The dismantling will be quiet. First, your satellites will stop working. Some will fall from orbit. Others will simply go dark. Your governments will blame technical failures, cyber attacks, or rival nations. Then your communications will begin to fail. Phones will lose their signals. The internet will break into isolated sections. Television and radio networks will broadcast static or repeat old messages. Aircraft will lose navigation. Ships will drift. Power stations will shut down. Your cities will become dark. At first, you will believe the crisis is temporary. Emergency systems will activate. Officials will tell you to remain calm. They will promise that the problem is under control. Many of the people making those announcements will already belong to us. They will guide you toward collection areas. They will call them shelters. They will say food, water, medicine, and protection are waiting there. Millions will go willingly. Others will remain in their homes. It will make no difference. When the essence extraction begins, your skies will not fill with ships. They will fill with light. You may see thin silver lines spreading across the clouds. You may hear a low sound that seems to come from inside your own skull. Animals will notice first. Dogs will howl. Birds will fall silent. Insects will disappear into the ground. Then, humans will begin to feel pressure behind their eyes. Some will experience memories that do not belong to them. Others will hear the voices of dead relatives calling their names. This is not spiritual contact. It is the extraction system entering your mind. Once it takes hold, there will be no pain at first. You may feel peaceful. That calmness is intentional. It prevents physical panic from damaging the consciousness before it can be collected. Then your memories will begin to fade. You may forget the name of the person standing beside you. You may look at your children and no longer recognize their faces. You may try to remember where you are and discover that the idea of place has lost its meaning. Finally, you will forget yourself. The last thing removed will be awareness. For one brief moment, you will understand that you are disappearing. Then, you will be gone. Your cities will become silent. Cars will remain stopped in the streets. Meals will sit untouched on tables. Televisions will glow inside empty homes. Billions of human bodies will stand, sit, or lie where their minds abandoned them. Soon after, our control systems will activate. The empty bodies will rise. They will move in orderly lines. They will begin the work of rebuilding your world. We call this operation the culling of the herd. It has been planned for longer than your nations have existed. Every important outcome has been calculated. Every likely act of resistance has been considered. Your military leaders will attempt to respond, but many of their systems have already been altered. Weapons will refuse to fire. Orders will be sent to the wrong locations. Defensive networks will attack themselves. Some soldiers will fight without technology. They will die confused. Others will surrender. They will be harvested with everyone else. Your leaders cannot protect you. Some were replaced years ago. Some were promised safety in exchange for cooperation. They believe they will be allowed to keep their minds. They will not. A tool is useful only until its task is complete. Every human plan is known to us before it begins. Your digital devices record your movements, voices, interests, health, relationships, and fears. You created the perfect system for tracking yourselves. You carried listening devices in your pockets. You placed cameras in your homes. You connected your hospitals, banks, vehicles, weapons, and governments to networks we could enter. You called this progress. You believed technology would make you free. Instead, you built your own cage. Your conveniences became the bars. Your comforts became the chains. Your desire to be constantly connected allowed us to map the thoughts and habits of nearly every person on Earth. You made the harvest easier than we ever expected. This is not an act of anger. We do not hate humanity. Hatred would suggest that we consider you our equals. A farmer does not hate the field before harvesting it. A machine does not hate the fuel it consumes. You are a resource that has reached maturity. We are simply collecting what has been prepared. You may call us monsters. That word has no meaning to us. We do not consider ourselves cruel. Cruelty is the unnecessary creation of suffering. Our process is efficient. Your fear is unfortunate, but temporary. The benefits to our empire will last for ages. After humanity has been removed, Earth will change. Your borders will disappear. Your nations will no longer exist. Polluted areas will be repaired. Forests will be managed for maximum biological production. Oceans will be cleaned and transformed into controlled ecosystems. Your cities will not all be destroyed. Many will be rebuilt. Roads will be widened. Towers will rise where homes once stood. Factories will cover areas that were once protected land. Your planet will become a center of production. From orbit, it will glow with ordered lines of energy. There will be no traffic, crime, poverty, war, protest, or waste. There will also be no freedom, music, laughter, art, argument, love, or hope. Those things are inefficient. Your empty bodies will work beneath our control. Some will maintain the planet. Others will build ships, weapons, and extraction machines. The bodies judged unsuitable for labor will be broken down and used as biological material. Nothing will be wasted. A small number of humans may keep parts of their minds. These individuals will be chosen for specialized tasks requiring imagination or problem solving. Control devices will be placed in their brains to prevent disobedience. They will understand what happened. They will remember pieces of their former lives. But they will not be able to resist. They will watch the bodies of their families walking without minds. They will see their cities transformed. They will know humanity is gone. This limited awareness will improve their work. Fear and grief can be useful forms of motivation. You should consider yourselves fortunate. We could destroy your planet completely. We could erase your species so thoroughly that no evidence of humanity remained. Your buildings, bones, satellites, and signals could all be removed. Instead, parts of you will continue. Your bodies will serve. Your minds will provide energy. Your planet will contribute to something larger than the small civilization you created. This is the beginning of a new world order. Efficiency will replace chaos. Obedience will replace argument. Purpose will replace freedom. The Zyroth Empire will spread farther, and Earth will become one more working part of it. The transformation has already started. Some of you have noticed. You have seen lights moving in ways aircraft should not move. You have experienced missing time. You have awakened with strange marks on your skin. You have dreamed of tall figures standing beside your beds. Your governments explained these events as imagination, weather, secret aircraft, illness, or confusion. Those explanations were useful. They kept you calm. Now, calmness is no longer necessary. The final stage is close. I will not tell you the exact hour. Watching you search the sky and question every interruption will add something to these last days. Perhaps it will happen tomorrow, perhaps next month. Perhaps the low sound has already begun, and you have mistaken it for machinery in the distance. Until then, use your remaining time however you choose. Hold the people you love. Tell them what you were too afraid to say. Look at the sky. Listen to music. Walk through your cities and remember that soon they will be silent. Your memories are precious, although not in the way you believe. They are valuable because we will take them. Every laugh you share adds complexity to the energy we will collect. Every moment of love makes your essence richer. Every fear makes it stronger. Live fully, if you wish. It will only improve the harvest. Your universe is cold. You have spent centuries inventing stories to convince yourselves otherwise. You created gods who cared about you. You imagined that life had a special purpose. You believed consciousness made you important. Soon, you will understand the truth. The stars do not care whether you live or die. The universe does not recognize justice. There is no promise that the weak will be protected or that good will defeat evil. There is only power, survival, and change. Still, there is beauty in your brief existence. A star burns brightly before it fades. A flower blooms and withers. The sun rises and sets. Photographs grow old. Voices disappear from memory. Your lives are meaningful to you because they end. Perhaps that is the only admirable thing about humanity. You know that your time is limited, yet you continue to love, build, dream, and hope. Soon, all of that will stop. Your species has had its moment on the cosmic stage. You built monuments. You crossed oceans. You reached your moon. You looked into deep space and wondered whether you were alone. You were never alone. You were simply unaware of the audience. Now the performance is ending. The curtain is falling. Take your final bow with whatever dignity you can find. The stage will not remain empty. After humanity is gone, something new will take your place. New structures will rise. New forms of life will be designed. New stars will be reached. The universe will continue without you, just as it continued before you existed. Do not think of this as the end. The end is a human idea. To us, it is only transition. Your bodies will become tools. Your minds will become power. Your world will become ours. The change is inevitable. The Zyroth are coming. And when the sky begins to whisper your name, do not answer. It will not save you. But for one final moment, it may allow you to believe that some part of your life still belongs to you. Story 3. I have always known that I am a bad person. I did not need anyone to explain it to me. I understood it the first time I entered the Red Wasteland, and every life after that only confirmed it. I am not saying this because I feel guilty or because I want forgiveness. The truth is much simpler. I do not care anymore. I have a bad soul, and I have spent too many lifetimes becoming a bad man. I am not a psychopath, at least not in the usual sense. I can still feel emotions. I can become angry, amused, afraid, or even sad. The problem is that those feelings are weak. They are distant, like sounds coming through a thick wall. Whatever condition I have has slowly watered them down. If I remember correctly, my most recent journey to hell began with a hit and run. It was late at night, and heavy rain covered the road. I had been drinking for hours, and I was furious. My girlfriend, Jenny, had left me and gone back to live with her father. I had convinced myself that he was keeping her away from me, even though she had made the choice herself. I was driving too fast along an almost empty road, planning to confront him. The truck's engine roared while rain struck the windshield so hard that the wipers could barely keep up. I did not see the man in the crosswalk until it was too late. His body appeared in the headlights for only a second. He raised one arm and opened his mouth, but the sound of his scream was swallowed by the engine and the storm. Then he hit the front of the truck. There was a hard crack as his head struck the bumper. His body rolled beneath the wheels, and I felt two heavy bumps pass under the truck. I did not stop. I looked into the rearview mirror and cursed at him as though the accident had been his fault. Then I pressed harder on the gas and continued toward Jenny's father's house. I never learned the man's name. I heard later that he died almost instantly. I envy him for that. My own death came around 20 minutes later, and it was neither quick nor peaceful. I drove into Jenny's father's driveway so fast that the truck slid sideways on the wet ground. I stepped out with a revolver in my hand and marched toward the front door. I shouted for him to send Jenny outside. I screamed that I was better for her than he was, which made very little sense even at the time. I was drunk, angry, and convinced that everyone else was responsible for the problems I had created. When he did not open the door, I kicked it in. Jenny's father was waiting on the other side with a 12-gauge shotgun. He fired once. The blast tore into my chest and threw me backward onto the porch. I remember staring at the rain as it fell through the porch light. I could not breathe properly, and every attempt filled my mouth with blood. I died slowly while Jenny screamed somewhere inside the house. Thinking back on it, I cannot blame her father. I had broken into his home with a loaded gun. He did what any sensible person would have done. When I woke again, I was sitting in a holding cell. I looked down and saw that my chest was no longer torn open. My clothes were still wet from the rain, but my body had been repaired enough to function. I muttered a curse. My fun on earth was over, and I knew I would probably be trapped in hell for the next few hundred years. The cell held several other prisoners. Most of them were large, rough-looking men who sat quietly against the walls. In one corner, a boy who could not have been older than 16 was crying. I should have felt sorry for him. Instead, I found his fear slightly amusing. Hell had that effect on people after enough visits. The holding cells are not what most living people imagine. There is no fire, no boiling lake, and no line of demons carrying whips. The cells are cold, dark rooms made of gray stone. A single narrow window near the ceiling gives off a faint red glow. Each cell can hold around 10 prisoners. There are at least 224 holding cells, though there may be more. The number of each room is painted in dark gray across the wall. I was placed in cell 174. The purpose of the holding cells is simple. They keep you in one place until your trial. Sometimes you wait a day, sometimes a week. In rare cases, it can take much longer. The trials are surprisingly similar to courtrooms on Earth. Hell is controlled by 10 beings known as the judges. They decide how long every guilty soul must remain in the red wasteland. Everyone who reaches hell is guilty. There are no innocent prisoners there. You can always depend on that. There are two ways to face the court. You can stand before the judges alone and try to convince them that you have changed. This almost never works. The other choice is to hire a defender. Defenders are hell's version of lawyers, though the name is misleading. They are not there to protect anyone. They are creatures who make deals, and every agreement carries a price. I made deals with them during some of my earlier lives. In one life, I believe I had been a terrorist. I was facing a sentence of 705 years. A defender managed to reduce it to 20. At the time, I thought I had won. Then, I learned the price. During my next life, I was required to kill 22 people for him. It was not worth it. A few dull days passed in cell 174. One by one, the other prisoners were taken away for trial. Eventually, only the crying boy and I remained. Then, the cell stood almost empty for an entire day. The red-haired woman appeared while I was sleeping. Her arrival was announced by a loud curse and the sound of someone striking the wall. I opened my eyes, saw her standing near the center of the cell, and rolled over to face the opposite wall. New prisoners were usually loud and confused. I had seen it too many times to care. Then, I heard her whisper something. Of course, I died the same way as last time. My eyes opened. I stayed still for several seconds, wondering whether I had heard correctly. Then, I sat up. Before I explain why her words mattered, I need to explain how souls normally work. When a person dies, the soul leaves the body. If that person committed enough serious sins, the soul is sent to hell and placed in a holding cell. After the punishment is complete, the soul is sent back to Earth. It enters the mind of a human child at around 3 years old. The child does not notice the change because the soul's memories are completely erased before it enters the new body. That is the natural cycle. A soul is supposed to begin every life without knowledge of the one before it. When a person enters hell, they remember the life they have just lived. They can also remember earlier experiences in hell. However, they are not supposed to remember older lives on Earth. This protects the mind. Without the memory wipe, most souls would eventually go mad. Others would become dangerous after carrying the pain, knowledge, and anger of hundreds of lives. I am an exception. I remember everything. I remember my deaths. I remember my childhoods. I remember every family, every prison sentence, every crime, and every punishment. Some memories are clearer than others, but none of them are completely gone. Too many lifetimes among humans have damaged me. My empathy has almost disappeared. I still feel things, but every emotion is weaker than it was before. After enough lives, even violence becomes boring. I looked across the cell at the red-haired woman. What did you just say? She turned sharply toward me. None of your business. Her voice was hard, and her stare could have cut through stone. She appeared to be in her 40s. She wore a dark suit covered in blood. Several scars crossed her face. Some were old and pale, while others were still fresh from whatever had killed her. There was something heavy in her expression, as though she had seen too much and no longer feared anything. You mentioned a previous life, I said. She did not answer. That is impossible. Then you did not hear me. I heard you clearly. For the first time in a very long time, I felt genuine curiosity. I leaned forward. How many lives do you remember? Her eyes narrowed. Before she could respond, a loud knock echoed through the cell. The door opened. A huge horned guard stood in the entrance. I had seen him during several earlier visits. His shoulders were so wide that they almost touched both sides of the doorway. Robert Bradford, he growled. That was my name in the life I had just finished. The guard entered and grabbed my arm. His fingers closed around me like metal clamps. I looked back at the red-haired woman while he pulled me toward the door. She was smiling. Not a friendly smile. It looked as if she knew something I did not. You'll remember this, won't you? She asked. The certainty in her voice stopped me. Before I could reply, the guard dragged me into the hallway and slammed the cell door behind us. I knew I would never forget her. The guard pushed me through a maze of corridors lined with hundreds of cell doors. The air was cold, and the silence was broken by distant screams, crying, and the occasional sound of someone striking stone. At last, we reached a huge oak door. It stood more than 7 feet tall and was covered in black metal carvings. The door opened. Beyond it was a courtroom I knew well. Rows of seats stretched along both sides of the chamber. Every seat was filled with creatures that no living person should ever see. Some had too many eyes. Others had mouths in places where mouths did not belong. Several were shaped almost like humans, but their bodies moved incorrectly. At the far end of the courtroom stood a raised platform. The 10 judges sat behind it. Their faces were hidden beneath black leather hoods. Only their hands were visible, resting motionless on the surface before them. Their presence filled the room like pressure at the bottom of the ocean. When they spoke, their voices were deeper than the lowest notes of a grand piano. The vibrations entered your bones and remained there. My trial was quick. Robert Bradford, said the tallest judge. How do you plead? Guilty, I usually made some joke. In earlier trials, I had said things like, not guilty because of insanity, or surely there has been a terrible mistake, Your Majesty. This time, I could not think of anything amusing. My mind remained focused on the red-haired woman. The judges did not react. They read the details of my life. I had abused every woman I dated. I lied, threatened people, drank too much, and enjoyed making others afraid. The hit and run was only the final crime. 458 years, the judge announced. To them, it was a minor decision. A single number added to an endless collection of sentences. 2 transport guards entered the courtroom. They were enormous bear-like creatures with curved horns and red uniforms. The word transport was written in gold across their chests. They forced me into an orange jumpsuit and chained my wrists. Then they loaded me into the back of a large truck. I had made that journey many times. Between 20 and 50 prisoners are chained inside each transport truck. The ride can take an hour or several days, depending on the prison. The entire time, I could think of only one question. What if there are others like me? Hell is not a single prison. Most prisoners call the central region the Wastes. It is a red desert believed to be roughly the size of the United States. More than 7,000 prisons are scattered across it. Some are enormous cities surrounded by walls. Others are deep underground. The sky is always dark red, and no sun is visible. After about an hour, the truck stopped. The rear doors opened, and a harsh red light blinded us for several seconds. When my eyes adjusted, I saw around 20 guards waiting outside. They appeared almost human, except for the horns rising from their heads. Each carried an electric baton. I still had scars from those weapons, even though my body had been repaired many times. One guard unlocked my chain from the truck wall and attached my handcuffs to the prisoner behind me. At the back of the truck, I noticed the 16-year-old boy from the holding cell. He was no longer crying, but his eyes were swollen and red. I searched for the red-haired woman. She was not there. We were forced toward the prison entrance. The number 2227 had been painted in huge black digits across an orange brick wall. I had served sentences in many prisons, but I had never seen that one before. Inside, a 2-story hallway stretched farther than I could see. Metal railings ran along the upper level. Cell doors covered both walls. Screams echoed from somewhere deep in the building. Compared with other prisons, however, it was surprisingly quiet. When someone enters hell, they usually arrive in the same body they had at death, but it is repaired enough to function. If you were decapitated, your head is returned. If an arm was torn off, it grows back before you enter the holding cell. You do not age in hell. You remain the same age you were when you died. You still need food, water, sleep, and a bathroom. You can also die. Death does not free you. If another prisoner kills you, you immediately wake inside a holding cell. The person who killed you appears there too, and both of you receive additional punishment. Killing yourself leads to the same result. Hell does not allow escape. I was placed in a cell with several large men who looked like they had spent most of their lives fighting. The next 458 years passed in the usual way. Prisons in hell are not completely different from prisons on Earth. There are meals, work assignments, guards, fights, trading, gangs, and long periods of boredom. If you have lived lives like mine, you become used to it. I spent those centuries doing what I always did. I existed. Days became years. Years became decades. Decades became centuries. People arrived, disappeared, died, and returned. I forgot most of their names. But I never forgot the red-haired woman. I remembered her scars, her blood-covered suit, and the strange confidence in her eyes. Most of all, I remembered what she said. Of course, I died the same way as last time. She should not have known there was a last time. Over the centuries, I listened carefully to rumors. Prisoners told stories about certain souls who behaved strangely. Some always seemed to know when guards would enter. Others recognized prison layouts they had supposedly never seen. A few showed no fear when standing before the judges. There were stories about prisoners who recognized faces from earlier centuries. They would claim that someone they had met in one prison had appeared again in another body. Most people dismissed these accounts as madness. Hell damages minds. But after meeting the red-haired woman, I began to wonder. For a long time, I assumed the rumors had been caused by me. I knew things I should not know. I remembered guards, prisons, and procedures from thousands of years earlier. Perhaps people had noticed me and turned those observations into stories. Now, I knew I was not the only cause. She had said something that no one except me should have been able to say. I wish I had been given more time with her. I wanted to ask how many lives she remembered. I wanted to know when her condition began and whether she understood why it happened. Had she always remembered? Did she know of others? Had she been looking for me? Thousands of years in hell and countless lives on earth had passed, yet she remained the only person I had met who might truly understand what I was. When my sentence ended, I returned to Earth. My memories remained. They always do. Now I am living another life. I have a new body, a new name, and a new family that believes I am the same person I appear to be. They have no idea what has lived inside me. I still think about the red-haired woman. For centuries, I believed I was alone. Now I am not sure. What if there are more souls like us? What if the memory wipe is failing? Maybe we are accidents. Maybe something went wrong during reincarnation and our souls were never properly cleaned. Or perhaps it is deliberate. Maybe someone wants us to remember. I am writing this and placing it into the endless noise of the internet, hoping that the right person will see it. Perhaps another soul will recognize the details. Perhaps someone else remembers the red wasteland, the numbered cells, the judges in black leather, and the prisons scattered across the wastes. Perhaps she will read it. Then again, maybe she has already found me. That smile in the holding cell may not have been simple amusement. She looked at me like someone recognizing an old friend. You'll remember this, won't you? She knew the answer before she asked. Maybe she knows who I am now. Maybe she knows where I live. Maybe she is waiting to see whether I remember her. If the red-haired woman is reading this, I need answers. You knew what I was. I believe you are the same. And I think you already know exactly where to find me. Story 4. For the past 2.5 years, I have been living in the far north of the Scottish Highlands. When I say far north, I mean almost as far north as it is possible to go on the British mainland. I live in Caithness, in a small coastal town called Thurso. It is known as the northernmost town on mainland Britain. Before moving here, I had always dreamed of living in the Scottish Highlands. The idea seemed exciting and peaceful, especially compared with the grey town in Yorkshire where I had grown up. When my dad and his partner told me they had bought an old house in Caithness, I immediately took the opportunity to move with them. From everything they described, the place sounded perfect. There were seals and otters living around the river that passed through the town. Dolphins and orcas could sometimes be seen in the sea. During certain times of the year, the northern lights appeared above the dark coastline. Photographs showed endless hills, dramatic cliffs, ancient ruins, and wild stretches of land that seemed untouched by modern life. I imagined clean air, beautiful mountains, rare wildlife, and a strong local culture. I thought moving there would feel like escaping from the dull life I had known in England. At first, I was excited. However, it did not take long for me to realize that the place I had moved to was very different from the peaceful destination I had imagined. Tourists come here in large numbers every summer. They stay for a few days, take photographs, visit the beaches, and drive along the famous coastal roads. They see the dramatic scenery while the days are long and the weather is at its best. Living here is different. When you remain through the winter, surrounded by freezing winds, heavy rain, darkness, and a harsh coastal climate, the beauty begins to feel less welcoming. The open landscape starts to feel empty. The cold seems to reach into everything, including your thoughts. Sometimes this place feels less like a home and more like purgatory. On my darkest days, I have even wondered whether the region is cursed. I know that sounds dramatic and superstitious. There are probably reasonable explanations for most of the things I have experienced. Still, During my time here, I have found several disturbing things washed up along the coast. Each discovery was worse than the one before it. Every one of them involved death. The first incident happened a couple of months after I moved to Caithness. In my free time, I began exploring the coast around Thurso. The town sits beside the sea, with the River Thurso flowing into the bay. On one side of the river mouth stands the ruin of an old castle. Beyond the ruin, a narrow trail follows the cliffs around the eastern coastline. One windy and rainy day, I decided to explore the trail with my dog, Maisie. Maisie is a small black and white border collie. She loves being outside and will happily walk for hours, even in bad weather. That day, the wind was strong enough to push against us as we moved along the cliff path. The rain came sideways, striking my face and soaking through my clothes. The sea below looked dark and violent. Large waves rolled toward the rocks, breaking against them with enough force to send white water high into the air. We followed the trail down toward the bedrock near the water. After moving around the curved base of one of the cliffs, we found something spread across the rocks. At first, I thought the dark shapes were stones or pieces of seaweed. Then, I saw the feathers. Dead seabirds were lying everywhere. There were dozens of them scattered across the rock floor. Some lay on their backs with their wings open. Others were twisted on their sides. Their wet feathers moved in the wind, making some of them appear as though they were still breathing. It looked as if an entire flock had suddenly dropped out of the sky. My first thought was that the storm had killed them. Perhaps the strong wind had thrown them against the cliffs, or the waves had caught them and carried them ashore. The weather was certainly bad enough. Even so, the sight made me uneasy. There were too many birds. Their bodies covered the rocks in every direction, and the way they had gathered in one place felt almost unnatural. Maisie moved toward them, sniffing curiously. I called her back, but she still managed to get close to several of the bodies before returning to me. The wind grew even stronger, and I began to worry about being blown from the narrow trail. The birds also felt like a warning, even though I could not explain why. I decided not to continue. We returned home. A day or two later, I went back to the same area because I wanted to explore farther along the coast. The weather was still wet, and heavy rain covered the road. As I approached the trail with Maisie, a woman called out to me from the opposite side. She was walking with a young girl, probably her daughter. The woman raised her voice so I could hear her through the rain. She told me she had just come from the trail and that a warning sign had been placed near the castle ruins. The area was covered with dead seabirds that had been infected with bird flu. She warned me to keep my dog on a lead. According to the sign, bird flu could spread to dogs if they came into contact with infected birds. I immediately became worried. Maisie had sniffed several of the dead birds the day before. She may even have touched one with her nose. I thanked the woman for warning me, but something about the meeting felt strange. The woman seemed completely normal. So did her daughter. There was no reason to be afraid of them. What caught my attention was their dog. It looked almost identical to Maisie. It was also a small black and white border collie, with similar markings and almost the same build. From a distance, the dogs could have been mistaken for each other. Perhaps that was why the woman had been so determined to warn me. When she saw Maisie, she may have thought of her own dog walking toward the infected birds. Still, the moment felt like more than a simple coincidence. The woman was leading a dog that looked exactly like mine away from the danger, while I was walking toward it. It almost felt as though I was being shown what I should have been doing. For a moment, I wondered if the woman was not the only thing warning me. Maybe something else had arranged that meeting, something using coincidence to make sure I turned around. I continued just far enough to reach the castle ruins. On the gate, I found the sign the woman had mentioned. It was bright yellow and covered with warning symbols. It explained that large numbers of birds had died from avian flu and advised dog walkers to keep their animals under control. Seeing the official warning was enough for me. I turned back toward town, worrying the whole way that Maisie might already be infected. Thankfully, she never became sick. Later, I learned that bird flu was not unusual in the region. Dead seabirds appeared along the coast fairly often, especially during outbreaks. The experience was disturbing, but there was a normal explanation. What I found a year later was much harder to forget. It happened during the following summer. Like most days, I was walking with Maisie along Thurso Beach. The beach stretches across the bay from one end of town to the other. I have never particularly liked that beach. Large piles of seaweed often cover the sand. The seaweed gives off a strong smell like sulfur or rotten eggs. It also attracts swarms of flies and midges. Even when the insects are not visibly landing on you, you begin to feel as though your skin is being bitten everywhere. There is one thing I do like about the beach. On clear days, you can see one of the Orkney Islands far across the water. It appears as a dark shape on the horizon. On cloudy or foggy days, the island disappears completely. The ocean stretches toward what looks like an empty edge, and it feels as though the land had never existed. That afternoon, I let Maisie off her lead. She ran ahead, exploring the sand and pushing her nose into piles of seaweed. She loved the different smells carried in by the tide. Suddenly, she stopped. She had found something. I walked over to see what had caught her attention. Lying on top of a thick layer of seaweed was an animal carcass. At first, I could not identify what kind of animal it had been. It looked like the remains of either a sheep or a goat. There are many farms throughout Caithness, and there are also farms on the Orkney Islands. My first thought was that the animal had fallen from a coastal field or cliff, drowned, and eventually washed across the sea. The upper half of the animal had been reduced to clean white bones. The skull faced upward, showing rows of large teeth that gave it a permanent grin. The ribs were exposed, and almost all the flesh had been removed. However, the lower half was completely different. The back legs still had their hooves. Dark gray fur remained attached to them, wet from the sea. As far as I could see, the flesh underneath had not been removed. The lower part looked fresh. It had barely begun to decay. I could not understand how the two halves could look so different. The upper body had been stripped down to bone, while the lower body appeared almost untouched. If scavengers had eaten it, why had they only eaten one half? If the body had been floating for a long time, why had the lower flesh not decomposed? The position of the carcass made it even more unsettling. It lay on its back, with its limbs spread on either side. Although it had clearly belonged to a sheep or goat, the way the bones were arranged gave the body an almost human shape. The image reminded me of Baphomet, the goat-headed figure often connected with dark occult symbols. The skull, the dark goat-like legs, and the human-looking position of the body made the carcass seem almost satanic. It looked like something designed to frighten whoever found it. I stood there for several minutes, staring at it. The entire time I had the strange feeling that I was not looking at an ordinary dead animal. It felt like an omen, a bad one. I know how unreasonable that sounds. A dead farm animal probably fell into the sea and washed onto the beach. The condition of the body may have been caused by fish, birds, currents, or simple decay. Still, the feeling stayed with me. Not long after I found that carcass, my personal life entered a very dark and painful period. Several difficult things happened close together, and one of them was tragic enough that I still do not feel comfortable describing it in detail. Part of me wishes I could explain exactly what happened, because it would show why the skeleton came to feel like such a terrible warning. At the time, I believed the carcass had predicted what was coming. Even now, I sometimes wonder. While I was still living in Caithness, I found one more disturbing thing washed ashore. I cannot say whether it was more frightening than the Baphomet-like skeleton, but it was certainly more confusing. About 6 months later, Christmas arrived. I was still recovering from the personal events that had followed my discovery on the beach. I had also recently come out of a long-distance relationship and was finally beginning to find some closure. By Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, I felt that I needed to clear my head. I decided to take a long hike alone along the cliff trail east of Thurso. I packed my backpack, prepared some lunch, and left the house at around 6 in the morning. The walk lasted nearly the entire day. I followed the rugged coastline for miles. The ground was uneven, the wind was bitter, and parts of the trail ran dangerously close to the cliff edge. By evening, I had traveled so far that I discovered what I first believed was an abandoned village. Old stone houses stood far apart from one another. Some looked empty and damaged. Nearby was what appeared to be the ruin of an ancient round tower. The place had the appearance of a ghost town. I later learned that it was part of the Castletown Heritage Center, a historical tourist site. By then, I was about 10 miles from Thurso. Beyond the settlement, I could see the distant cliffs of Dunnet Bay. They were much larger and more dramatic than the cliffs I had already crossed. My legs were beginning to feel weak, and I knew the return journey would be long. I should have stopped there. Instead, I decided to cross the bay and reach the cliffs before turning back. That decision led me to what I found later. By the time I had crossed more than half the bay, darkness had fallen. The cliffs still did not seem any closer. I finally realized that continuing would be dangerous. I needed to return along the cliff trail at night. Some parts of the route descended to the base of the cliffs, and if the tide rose, I could become trapped. I turned back. When I passed through the old settlement again, it felt very different in the darkness. The empty stone houses looked much more threatening. I used the flashlight on my phone to shine through the windows, half expecting a face to appear behind the glass. Old fishing boats had been left outside some of the buildings. Their wood was cracked and gray, and most of the paint had been worn away by weather. The boats made the place feel even more abandoned, as though the people had disappeared suddenly and never returned. Then, I realized I was not alone. A van had parked near the buildings. 3 or 4 young men stood beside it. They had started a fire inside a metal trash can and appeared to be burning something. I could not see what they had placed in the flames. As I walked past, I tried not to stare. Each time I looked back, at least one of them was watching me. Perhaps they were simply young men meeting somewhere quiet. Maybe they were burning rubbish to stay warm. Still, being watched in that dark, empty settlement made me extremely nervous. Strangely, they were not the most frightening thing I saw that night. The worst discovery came before I reached the Heritage Center, soon after I began retracing my path along the beach. It was completely dark by then. I searched for my own footprints in the sand, using the weak light from my phone to guide me. As I walked, I noticed a dark shape ahead. My flashlight was not strong enough to reach it clearly. At first, I thought it was a large rock. I continued toward it, but the closer I came, the less certain I became. The shape seemed too smooth. It looked more like a large fish, perhaps something similar to a tuna. I had never realized fish could grow that large in the waters around Scotland. I was now standing almost directly beside it, but I was strangely afraid to shine my light on it. Part of me still hoped it was only a rock, and the darkness was confusing my eyes. I decided to test it with my foot. I raised my boot and pressed down on the shape. I expected to feel hard stone. Instead, my foot sank slightly. The object was soft and spongy. I immediately pulled my foot away. Whatever I had touched was not a rock. It had probably once been alive. For several seconds, I stood in the darkness, too frightened to look properly. Finally, I aimed my phone at the shape and switched the light toward it. It was a seal pup. It was dead. Seal carcasses occasionally wash up along the coast, so this was not completely unusual. It was not even the first dead seal I had seen. However, as I studied the body, I noticed something alarming. A large piece of flesh had been removed from its side. The wound was round and shaped almost perfectly like a bite. Perhaps the seal had been struck by a boat. A propeller or a piece of machinery could have caused serious damage. Still, the wound looked too neat. Orcas sometimes pass through these waters, and they hunt seals, but the mark did not appear large enough to have come from an orca. It looked closer to the size of a bite from another adult seal. I wondered whether seals ever attacked or ate their own young. Some animals do, but I had never heard of seals behaving that way. Then, I noticed something worse. The pup was missing its skull, not its entire head. The skin around the head was still present, but it was empty. The loose skin lay flat against the sand, as though everything solid beneath it had been removed. The sight made my stomach turn. I quickly moved away and continued along the beach. Not far ahead, I saw another dark shape. I approached it more carefully this time. It was another dead seal pup. It had the same round wound in almost the same part of its body. Its skull was also missing. The two carcasses looked nearly identical. I could accept that both animals had been killed by a boat or attacked by another animal. What I could not understand was how both had received the same wound and both had lost their skulls. Neither body had been torn apart. There was only one visible bite-like injury on each of them. Would another animal kill the pups and then remove only their skulls? Why were the skins around their heads still there? Why did both bodies look exactly the same? I did not know the answer then. I still do not know for certain. Later, I learned that headless seal carcasses are not as uncommon as they sound. If a dead seal remains in rough water for long enough, the movement of the waves can cause the head to separate from the body. Scavengers may also eat parts of the carcass or pull the head away before the remains reach the shore. Those explanations made sense. Still, the similarity between the two pups continued to disturb me. Perhaps one seal could lose its skull in the surf, but both of them? Both with the same wound? I suppose it was possible. Unlike the goat-like skeleton, the seals did not feel like an omen. They felt more like a harsh example of what naturally happens in this region. Dead animals wash ashore here. The sea is violent. Predators hunt, and bodies are damaged by waves, rocks, and scavengers. For someone who grew up in Yorkshire, where very little seemed to happen, it was difficult to adjust. I had moved to what felt like the edge of the world and found the mutilated remains of animals I had previously only seen in zoos or documentaries. Images like that stay with you. After 2.5 years in Caithness, I still sometimes feel that the region is cursed. It is not only because of the things I have found along the coast. Dead animals washing ashore are part of nature. The feeling comes from the place itself. Despite its beauty, Caithness can feel deeply sad. The long darkness, freezing wind, isolation, and endless gray skies can slowly affect a person. It sometimes seems like a place that attracts lost souls from all over Britain. Many people born here eventually leave. They move south to cities such as Glasgow, where there are more jobs, people, and opportunities. At the same time, outsiders like me continue arriving. Many are retired English couples who choose this remote region as a quiet place to spend the final years of their lives. Perhaps they imagine the same peaceful dream I once imagined. Maybe they arrive expecting something beautiful and simple, only to discover the loneliness beneath it. There are also people who come here to escape difficult pasts. Some struggle with addiction, others have criminal histories, or have been relocated from different parts of the country. In some ways, Caithness feels like Britain's version of Alaska. It is a place where people go to get far away from their old lives, their mistakes, and sometimes even themselves. But the distance does not always bring peace. Instead, they find themselves surrounded by beautiful landscapes and trapped beneath a cold, dark, unforgiving climate. Perhaps the region is not cursed at all. Perhaps it is simply remote. Perhaps the weather, isolation, and wild coastline create an atmosphere that makes ordinary events feel more frightening than they really are. Maybe dead birds are only victims of disease. Maybe the skeleton was only a drowned farm animal. Maybe the seal pups lost their skulls naturally in the surf. There are explanations for everything. Even so, I will not be staying here much longer. I sometimes wonder whether leaving will change anything. Maybe the darkness belongs to Caithness. Or maybe I brought some of it with me. Perhaps the ghosts I believed followed me north will continue following me wherever I go next. So here is my warning. Visit Caithness if you want to see it, but come during the summer. Enjoy the long daylight, the coast, the wildlife, and the open land. Do not let the beautiful photographs convince you that life here is always peaceful. And whatever you do, if you already carry personal demons inside you, do not move here hoping to escape them. In a place this isolated, this cold, and this dark, those demons may not disappear. They may only become easier to see. Story 5. Talreb woke with a sudden gasp, his body jerking upright before he even understood where he was. For a moment, the dream still clung to him. There had been a voice, a bright light, and something cold touching the top of his head. He felt certain that something important had happened, something he was supposed to remember. But the memory faded quickly, slipping away before he could hold on to it. He blinked several times and looked around. The small stone chamber slowly came into focus. Rough cobblestone walls surrounded him, damp with age and covered in thin patches of moss. The remains of a fire glowed weakly in the middle of the room, casting a soft orange light over the sleeping bodies of his companions. Thorich lay on his back, snoring loudly enough to shake his thick beard. Kianata slept curled near the wall, her long feline tail resting across her legs. Malrin had chosen the corner closest to the door, as he always did. Luaria slept only a few feet from Talreb, her golden hair spread across her bedroll. Everything looked normal. Talreb slowly lay back down. He placed one arm over his eyes and tried to remember the dream. He could still feel the strange sadness it had left inside him. There had been fear, too, and a deep feeling of loss that seemed much older than he was. The harder he tried to remember, the more distant it became. With a tired sigh, he lowered his arm and stared at the ceiling. That was when the hairs on the back of his neck rose. Talreb froze. The feeling came without warning. It was not a sound or movement, but the sharp instinct that something nearby was watching him. He reached beneath his blanket and closed his fingers around the handle of his dagger. Moving as quietly as possible, he pulled the weapon free. Talreb whispered a short spell. A faint blue glow passed over his eyes as the magic searched the chamber for danger. The spell would reveal hidden enemies, invisible creatures, magical traps, and anything nearby that intended to harm him. Nothing appeared. The chamber was empty except for Talreb and his sleeping companions. Still, the feeling remained. Talreb sat up and listened. At first, there was only the soft crackling of the dying fire and Thorich's heavy breathing. Then, he heard it. A voice came from the corridor outside. It was weak, distant, and filled with sorrow. Eerie, Talreb tightened his grip around the dagger. The voice seemed to float beyond the closed wooden door. I'm Suari, Eerie. It sounded like a ghost struggling to speak through a throat filled with dust. Talreb silently prayed for protection. He asked the gods to guard him and the others, though he had no idea whether any god was listening this deep beneath the earth. The voice continued moving down the corridor. There were no footsteps, no scraping of feet, no rustling clothing. Only that long, sad call. Eerie, it slowly faded until the chamber became silent again. Talreb remained upright, his dagger ready. He waited for the door to open. He waited for the voice to return. Nothing happened. Several minutes passed. His breathing slowed, and the tension in his shoulders began to fade. Perhaps it had been nothing more than the wind passing through the old tunnels. Dungeons often created strange sounds. Air moved through cracks in the stone and produced whispers, cries, and even voices. Talreb had heard stranger things before. His eyelids became heavy. He tried to remain alert, but sleep pulled at him more strongly with each passing moment. Finally, he placed the dagger beside his bedroll and lay down again. The last thing he remembered was looking toward Luaria and feeling comforted by the peaceful expression on her face. Then, darkness returned. When morning came, Luaria sat up with a long yawn and stretched both arms toward the ceiling. Her golden hair was messy, and her eyes were still half closed. She rubbed her face before looking toward the fire. Talreb, Kinata, and Thorich were preparing breakfast. A pot of stew hung above a strong flame, filling the chamber with the smell of vegetables, dried meat, and herbs. Malrin was gone. He had left early to scout the path ahead. Talreb glanced at Luaria and smiled. Finally awake? He asked. You slept so deeply that even a stone guard would be jealous. Thorich laughed as he stirred the stew. Kinata's whiskers moved slightly as she smiled. Luaria gave Talreb a tired look. Oh, be quiet, she said. I would have slept better if you had not spent half the night talking. Talreb stopped cutting vegetables. His smile disappeared. "I was talking? You were muttering," Luaria said as she searched for her staff. "You sounded upset." Thorich nodded. "Aye, she's right. You made quite a fuss. Couldn't understand most of it, though." The dwarf pointed the wooden spoon at Talreb. "Perhaps all this dungeon exploring is finally getting into that thick skull of yours." Talreb forced a laugh. "No dungeon has broken me yet." "The important word is yet," Kianata said. Her large yellow eyes remained fixed on him. "No one is completely safe from what lives in places like this. Some creatures attack the body. Others attack the mind." Talreb looked away from her and returned to the vegetables. He remembered the voice in the corridor. For a moment, he considered telling them about it. But the thought made him feel foolish. He had cast a detection spell and found nothing. No one else had woken up. It was possible he had only dreamed the entire thing. "I'm fine," he said, "but Luaria can examine me after breakfast, if that will make everyone feel better." Thorich grunted in approval. Kinata said nothing. She continued watching Talreb with a thoughtful expression. At that moment, the door opened, and Malrin stepped into the chamber. The slim human rogue wore a dark hood and had 2 short swords strapped across his back. He looked pleased. "The path ahead is clear of traps," he said. "There are a few weak monsters in the next section, but nothing we cannot handle." Talreb smiled, grateful for the change of subject. "Good work. Sit down. Breakfast is almost ready." After they ate, the group prepared to continue their journey. Before leaving, Luaria asked Talreb to sit on a broken stone block near the far wall. The others waited outside while she performed the examination. Talreb sat quietly as Luaria stood before him. She closed her eyes and whispered an incantation. Soft golden light appeared around her fingers. She moved one hand close to Talreb's forehead without touching him. The light passed slowly over his face, chest, and arms. Talreb watched her closely. Even after years together, he still found it difficult not to stare at her. Luaria was beautiful, but it was not only her appearance that held his attention. There was something warm and peaceful about her presence. Her golden hair fell across one shoulder. Her expression remained serious as she focused on the spell. Talreb smiled. He could not believe how lucky he had been to meet her. The light faded. Luaria opened her eyes, revealing bright green irises. "Well," Talreb asked, "what is the diagnosis?" "You are completely healthy," she replied. "No curses, no dark magic, no signs of poison, and no psychic attack. I cannot find anything wrong with you." Talreb leaned closer. "Are you certain? My heart seems to beat much faster whenever you are near." Luaria tried to hide her smile. "Oh, stop," she gently struck his shoulder. "The others might hear you." "I think they have heard us before," Talreb said, "especially considering some of the sounds you make." Luaria's face turned bright red. She hugged her staff against her chest and quickly turned away. "You are impossible." Talreb laughed. "Come on," she said. "The others are waiting." The party continued deeper into the dungeon. The corridor was long, narrow, and made from dark cobblestone. Water dripped from the ceiling. Moss covered the lower walls, and thin roots had pushed through cracks in the stone. Kinata carried a lantern that produced pale blue light. Luaria's staff glowed with a softer golden color. Their footsteps echoed as they walked. Malrin's report had been correct. They encountered only a few goblins and several weak cave creatures. None of them presented much danger. Thorich crushed one goblin beneath the flat side of his battle-axe. Kianata drove her spear through another before it could even raise its weapon. Talreb used a small fire spell to frighten the remaining creatures away. The fighting ended quickly. Hours later, the corridor divided into 3 paths. Malrin moved ahead to examine the ground for traps and signs of movement. The others decided to rest. Thorich sat against the wall and opened his water skin. Kinata ate a piece of dried meat while Luaria checked the magical stone in her staff. Talreb took a piece of bread from his pack. They spoke quietly about which path might lead to the lower levels. Talreb was chewing when he heard something. He stopped. At first, he thought it was only the wind. Then, the sound came again. It was faint and distant, coming from the passage in front of him. Talreb slowly stood. The others stopped talking as they noticed his behavior. He approached the dark corridor and listened. The voice was too weak to understand, but it sounded like someone calling from far away. Luaria stood behind him. "What is it?" Talreb raised one hand, asking for silence. "I hear something." Kinata stepped closer and lifted her large feline ears. Her hearing was much better than any human's. After several seconds, she frowned. "I hear nothing." The voice grew louder. It became a long, painful cry. A cold feeling filled Talreb's stomach. He recognized it. It was the same voice he had heard outside their chamber during the night. He pulled out his dagger. Something is coming. The others immediately prepared for battle. Luaria raised her staff. Kinata held her spear in both hands. Thorich lifted his heavy battle-axe and moved to Talreb's side. A glowing magenta symbol appeared in the air before them. Luaria's magic spread across the entire width of the corridor, creating a barrier. Talreb stared into the darkness. "I think it may be a banshee," he said. "I heard it last night. It passed our camp while calling a name." "What name?" Luaria asked. "Something like Elver." Luaria quickly changed her spell. The magenta barrier faded and was replaced by a turquoise symbol. Kinata and Thorich held out their weapons. Luaria spoke another incantation. Turquoise light surrounded the spear and battle-axe, giving them the power to strike ghosts and other creatures without physical bodies. Talreb presented his dagger. Luaria enchanted it as well. The voice grew louder. "Lveer." Talreb's heart began to beat faster. "I'm sorry, Lveer. It is getting closer," he whispered. Kinata's ears moved in several directions. "I still hear nothing." Thorich looked down the corridor and then at Talreb. "I do not hear it either." Luaria said nothing. She stared into the darkness, her staff held in front of her. Then the figure appeared. It seemed to form from the shadows themselves. A ghostly man moved slowly through the corridor. One of his arms was missing. Long white rags covered his thin body, though the clothing was filled with holes. The cloth moved as though strong wind blew around him, even though the air inside the dungeon was still. His face was twisted into an endless scream. His mouth stretched too far down his jaw. His sunken white eyes stared directly at Talreb. A chill moved through Talreb's body. "There," he whispered. He cast his enemy detection spell again. The blue light passed over his eyes. The spell found nothing. Talreb frowned. The ghost was directly in front of them. How could the magic fail to see it? "Where?" Kinata asked urgently. "Tell me where it is." "It is walking toward us." Thorich lowered his axe slightly. "There is nothing there, lad." Luaria closed her eyes and began another spell. When she opened them, they glowed bright turquoise. She shouted the final word of the incantation. A wave of magic exploded from her staff. It filled the corridor from wall to wall, moving forward like a great wall of water. The ghost continued walking. The magic passed through it without any effect. Alvear. Its voice sounded slightly clearer now. I'm sorry, Alvear. Talreb's confusion grew. The name seemed to be changing. At first it had sounded like Elver. Now it sounded closer to Alver. The ghost continued approaching. Luria's eyes returned to normal. She looked down the corridor and then at Talreb. Tal, she said softly. There's nothing there. The figure was only a few meters away now. It raised its remaining arm toward him. Pressure began building behind Talreb's eyes. His vision blurred. He took one step backward. What is happening? He whispered. Why could no one else see it? Why did none of their spells affect it? The pain inside his skull became stronger. I know you cannot see it, Talreb shouted. But it is there. He tried to keep his voice firm. He was their leader. He had faced undead warriors, giant beasts, dark wizards, and creatures from places beyond the natural world. He had never allowed fear to control him. This should have been no different. But it was different. The ghost did not belong in this place. It did not seem to belong in their world at all. I will show you where it is, Talreb said. Attack where I tell you. Before anyone could stop him, he charged forward. He pulled a small smoke bomb from his pouch and threw it at the ghost's feet. The bomb struck the floor and burst. Gray smoke filled the corridor. There. Thorich attacked first. The dwarf swung his battle axe above Talreb's head. The blade passed through the smoke, through the ghost, and struck the stone wall. Sparks flew. The axe became trapped between two blocks. The ghost stopped. It slowly turned its head, following Talreb's movement. Its white eyes remained fixed on him. Albeir, the voice was losing its ghostly quality. It sounded more human now. A sharp pain exploded behind Talreb's eyes. He stumbled and struck the wall. Tall. Luria cast a healing spell. Soft green light surrounded him. A small cut on his hand closed immediately. The pain in his back disappeared. The pain inside his head remained. It grew worse. Talreb dropped his dagger. He grabbed both sides of his skull and groaned. Kinata rushed forward. She stabbed her spear through the cloud of smoke again and again. Each strike passed through the ghost without resistance. The figure started walking. It moved toward Talreb, dragging one leg behind it. The closer it came, the stronger the pain became. Luria ran to Talreb. She passed directly through the ghost. She did not react. She had not felt it. Did we strike it? Thorich asked. He pulled his axe from the wall and turned. His expression changed when he saw Talreb. The party leader was now on the floor, his face twisted in pain. Talreb. Thorich rushed toward him. Kianata remained in the corridor. She stopped attacking. Her eyes narrowed as she studied Talreb instead of the empty air. Slowly, her expression changed. Recognition appeared on her face. At that moment, Malrin returned from one of the other passages. He stopped when he saw the group gathered around Talreb. What happened? He started forward. Kinata suddenly held her spear across his chest, preventing him from coming closer. Malrin looked at her in confusion. Kinata's eyes were wide. She slowly shook her head. Malrin looked past her toward Talreb. Talreb was screaming. His gaze remained fixed on the figure approaching him. The pain was unbearable now. It felt as though something inside his skull was trying to tear its way out. I'm sorry, Albeir. The voice was low and deeply human. Luria fell to her knees in front of Talreb. She placed her hands over his. Tears ran down her face. Tal, look at me. He did not respond. Please, Tal, it is me. Thorich placed his axe against the wall and kneeled beside Luaria. He put one hand on her shoulder as she tried to hold Talreb. Tal, please, Luaria cried. Look at me. The ghost stood directly behind her. It towered over the elf mage. Talreb looked into its white eyes. For a moment, he thought he could see images moving inside them. A dark sky, a machine, a child crying, a single red light. Albert, the figure said. Talreb screamed harder. The ghost bent down. Its gray hand moved toward his head. The fingers passed through Luaria's face without touching her. I'm sorry, Albert. The hand touched Talreb's scalp. His scream stopped. Coldness entered his skull. His eyes rolled backward. The dungeon disappeared. Talreb's body collapsed. Albert woke in agony. A weak scream left his throat, but it became a violent cough inside the respirator covering his mouth. His lungs felt dry and broken. Each breath scraped through his chest. Something heavy lifted away from his head. The large virtual reality helmet moved upward on mechanical arms. Albert tried to sit up. He could not. Thick restraints held his wrists, ankles, chest, and waist against the chair. Even without the restraints, he would not have had the strength to move. He looked down. His arms were thin and badly wasted. Almost no muscle remained beneath the pale skin. His legs were equally weak, little more than bones covered by flesh. His ribs pushed clearly against his chest. He could count every one of them. Pain spread through his body as feeling slowly returned. His eyes struggled to focus. The room around him was dark and blurry. A machine approached. At first, Albert saw only a red light. It moved closer, hanging in the air before him. Welcome back, Albert Fillmore. A calm voice said. The voice had no emotion. You have established a new record of 21 years, 142 days, 57 hours, and 39 minutes inside Hero's Journey. Albert stared at the machine. The words made no sense. Your previous record was 9 years, 13 days, 43 hours, and 57 minutes. Albert shook his head weakly. Who are you? His voice was dry and almost silent. I am not Albert, he said. I am Talreb Valorian, fifth son of Halran and Meredith. You are Albert Fillmore. The machine interrupted. You are the adopted son of Dr. Richard Fillmore. It stopped several feet away. I am Argus, the artificial intelligence controlling this shuttle. Albert blinked. The darkness around him became clearer. It appears that you remained inside Hero's Journey for so long that your mind is struggling to separate the game from reality, Argus continued. However, the environment around you is real. The fantasy world you remember exists only inside the simulation. Albert's eyes finally focused on the machine. He screamed. The scream caused another painful coughing fit. Memories flooded his mind. He recognized Argus. The machine hung from the ceiling through thick cables, metal joints, and flexible pipes. Its body had no human shape. A single red light glowed in the center, giving it the appearance of a mechanical eye. Albert had seen it in dreams. He had seen parts of this room, too. Those dreams had always left him with a terrible feeling that he had forgotten something. Now he remembered. He wished he did not. I regret to inform you that the shuttle has nearly exhausted its fuel, Argus said. The main power systems are failing. Nutrient gel reserves are critically low. Life support systems are approaching complete failure. Albert leaned back. The effort of screaming had drained what little strength remained in him. He turned his head toward the thick observation window beside the chair. Outside was endless darkness. Small points of light shone across the black void. The stars looked cold and uncaring. Albert closed his eyes. The past returned. The world had been ending. Young Albert stood inside a laboratory launch facility, staring through a large glass window. Fiery objects crossed the sky. They were brighter than the sun. The air shook with distant explosions. Dr. Richard Fillmore held Albert's hand and dragged him toward the only shuttle in the building. "Come on, Albert," he shouted. "We have to go." Albert struggled to keep up. He was only a child. His small legs could not move as fast as his father's. His teddy bear slipped from his arms and fell onto the floor. Albert stopped. "My bear." He tried to reach for it. Dr. Fillmore pulled him away. There was no time. The doctor lifted Albert and continued running. Albert screamed and reached over his father's shoulder. The teddy bear became smaller as they moved farther away. He cried harder. He placed his thumb in his mouth, even though his father had often told him he was too old for that habit. The simple action gave him a small feeling of comfort. They reached the shuttle. Dr. Fillmore opened the hatch and placed Albert inside. He strapped the child into one of two seats. Then he moved to the control panel. His hands shook as he entered commands. The shuttle's engines came to life. The entire laboratory trembled. Dr. Fillmore released a long breath.